Olympia by Edward Manet. It was painted in 1863. It is an oil on canvas. In terms of context, hopefully you see right away this is based on Titian's Venus of Urbino, which was a seminal piece from back in the Italian Renaissance. So many of our reclining nudes are references back to that piece. More kind of local context is that the French used the names of Greek and Roman goddesses as names of prostitutes. Prostitutes took those names on. And so when we see Olympia here, people would have known at the time, he's talking about a prostitute. Now, while images of prostitutes were not unheard of, and while images of Black people were not unheard of, the combination of a low-class prostitute here and a Black maid takes on a lot greater meaning. The artist is saying something. Now, this artist, Edward Manet, had done this painting called Luncheon on the Grass in 1863 also, and he had tried to get this accepted at the Paris Salon, which was a juried show where you had to get approval to have your painting displayed, and everybody in Paris came to see all the art. Pre-TV, for sure. And in this piece, a painter in her own right, Vitrine Morant here, is naked in this piece and was also the model for Olympia. At any rate, this piece was refused. It was not allowed entrance into the Salon, and Edward Manet was very upset by this. And so the piece Olympia, which was created in the same year as this one, was held back for 2 years. He didn't try to submit it to the Salon then until 1865. Now, he was a wealthier dude, so he did not necessarily need to sell his paintings like other desperate painters would, but he did have the desire to be accepted by the art world of the day. When this piece appeared then in 1865 in the Salon, some say that the board of directors accepted his piece because they didn't want to be charged with discrimination about his work. So it was accepted, but they had to place 2 policemen next to this so that people would not destroy it. It wasn't until they were able to move it into a space above a doorway where people couldn't reach it that the police were taken away from this work. So Edward Manet got lots of critique about this piece, and he is quoted as having said, "They are raining insults upon me." Today, this is considered one of the seminal works in our transformation into modern art. So what do we have in terms of form? We have, in terms of specific visual evidence, a woman lying on a bed. She's got, interestingly, no clothes, but she has all these little accoutrements, all these little jewelry pieces. She's got a bracelet, she's got a ribbon around her neck, a little orchid here in her hair, and then she's got little, what we call kitten slippers on. Now, some would say, how do you read her look? The word cold indifference has been used to describe her look out at the audience or the viewer. The other thing to note is there is a Black maid standing here with flowers, presumably from a client. And at the end of the bed, we have a black cat. I don't know if you've heard the stories about black cats, but typically not good. So in terms of content, then what does this all mean? Manet uses a dark background. There's no vanishing point that we look at. Remember, in the Venus of Urbino, you look back at a maid who's opening up a chest of clothing in the background. Here, there is nothing but 2-tone dark paneling in the back and a curtain, but all of them in the dark shade, so this body contrasts really greatly to that. He is accused, well, not accused, he is found to use really loose brushwork, meaning that he didn't take a lot of time to create the images here. So you can kind of see it here. This is some brushwork is something you really kind of have to see in person, but trust me, there is a lot of description from art historians about the fact that there's just loose cavalier kind of brushwork. Compare it to this piece where you can see, wow, those arms are super, super defined and just detailedly painted. It's again that description of licked clean, where here it's just rather loose. And that would be another factor that would cause this piece to not be so well appreciated. So in other words, by the use of his whole setup on this piece, the form and the painterly ways that he's got, he is really mocking the traditional past. This woman in the piece, as I say, the appearance of Black people in art at this point was not unheard of, but there's much discussion about her in art right now. The questions are, who is she? Why was she included with a reclining nude? And what message is Manet giving us about the times, about the history, about the current view in France in 1863? So more content. It's also commented that this look by this woman, the prostitute, is really brazen. And the Black woman holding the flowers from one of the prostitute's lovers, it adds up to the 1863 kind of view of this is just moral depravity, and it's really base sexuality. This must be it's a lowbrow prostitute. And then the connotations about people with Black skin and what that means about sexuality. We'll talk about more about that in class, but it just takes the painting or the messaging into that sexual world even more. So then we have here a black cat. You know, a black cat is bad luck, but it's like Satan's minion here on this piece. There is no little puppy or little dog that's super loyal. You know, cats kind of get up and do their own thing. And so we have this whole messaging totally opposite. So the function of this piece is it marks a moment in history where the classical traditions are changing. And we saw this with The Stonebreakers by Gustave Courbet. This is about different subject matter. We're going from the classical world now to the industrial world. And with his loose painting and subject matter, Manet is making a change.